Hello, my name is Shannon Sibayan from edX Business School, and today we are going to see if there's any correlation between perceptions of corruption and two important external uncontrollable factors: the occurrence of devastating natural disasters and the discovery of economically important natural resources. The annual Corruption Perceptions Index is published by Transparency International. This index ranks countries and territories based on how corrupt their public sector is perceived to be. The data comes from a combination of well-documented polls, drawing on corruption-related data collected by a variety of institutions. The index works on a scale from 0 to 10, with countries nearer to 10 having very clean perception levels. There's the United States, ranked at 24th, followed briefly by France, all the way to countries near 1, which have highly corrupt perception levels. In this research, corruption is defined as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. So let's take a look at the map. This is from 2011. There's a troubling amount of red, meaning highly corrupt, in all of the developing countries. There are a few hopeful hotspots in the global south, notably Chile and Botswana, but for the most part, the non-Western world ranks quite low on the index. What are the causes of this widespread corruption perception? Surely delicate political situations and poverty are contributing factors, but what about those factors that these countries cannot control? In the presence of a natural disaster, or conversely, the discovery of a precious natural resource, does corruption perception tend to go up or down? Let's take a look at the data. This chart shows the corruption perception progression of 12 countries over the last decade, typically found at the bottom of the index each year. Remember that the index is on a scale from 0 to 10, and these countries are barely approaching 4. Each of these lines show increases and decreases depending on the year, but we are going to look at a couple of these countries in particular and see how they handled natural disasters and natural resource discoveries. Let's start in Bangladesh. In 2007, this incredibly densely populated country experienced Cyclone Sidr on November 15th, affecting 27 million people and killing over 2,000. Now, one would imagine that a country here at the bottom of the Corruption Perception Index would experience even worse corruption in times of an emergency, if for nothing else than the stream of foreign aid that most certainly flows into the country. But surprisingly, Bangladesh was on a steadily rising slope, and after stagnating for 2 years below 2, the period after the cyclones brought them almost to 3. The Corruption Index considers any change more than 0.3 percentage points to be a substantial difference. But maybe Bangladesh was on an upward swing anyhow, due to policy changes and improvement of human rights standards. So let's look at another country. Moving next door, Myanmar. In 2008, this country also suffered a terrible cyclone which killed over 100,000 people and displaced far more. But as we can see, that year the Corruption Index actually recovered from a severe drop and began to rise again slowly. Again, we're talking about a country at the bottom of the index, infamous for its human rights abuses, but it seems that an improvement, ever so slight, can be found following a terrible disaster. Did these countries go against the odds and band together in a time of crisis, rather than following the route many of us would have expected, which would be corrupt governments seeing a chance to profit from a terrible tragedy? The last country we'll look at today involves Ghana. After decades of exploration, Ghana discovered an enormous oil reserve off the coast, bringing an untold amount of business to a region that had been struggling. Once again, we would think that the find of a natural resource, in addition to Dutch disease, would contribute significantly to the corruption perception in the country. But as we can see here, 2006 actually seemed to be a turning point in the country's progression. Things have been looking up for Ghana in terms of corruption perception ever since that oil was found, and hopefully the trend will continue. Not all of these countries were fortunate to see an increase in their corruption perception index as Bangladesh, Burma, and Ghana were. Iran has been on a decline, as well as Nigeria. Obviously, the issue of corruption is complex, and there are many factors that contribute to it worsening or improving, but it is interesting that the 3 countries with the strongest turnaround happen to experience them at what would normally be classified as a time period of corruption heyday for them, after the discovery of a natural resource or a devastating disaster. Maybe this inverse disaster corruption effect can be studied further to give those working on development and corruption issues a better idea about the causes and remedies of corruption. This concludes my presentation. Please check out my bibliography, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Thank you!